croeso mawr iawn i chi gyd i'r rhaglen gyntaf yn y gyfres o FCTV. Yn enw i'w Elan Davies a dwi'n gweithio fel swyddog technegol i'r tîm Cig Coch gyda Cyswllt Ffermio. Bwriad y rhaglen hon yw dod ar diweddaraf i chi o'n rhwydwaith o ffermydd arddangos, canlyniadau prosiectau, ynghyd â datblygiadau pwrpasol o'r diwydiant. Bydd bob un rhaglen yn canolbwyntio ar un thema benodol, a'r thema y mis hwn yw is-adeiledd. Yn ystod y rhaglen, byddwn yn ymweld â 4 o'n ffermydd arddangos, sef Graig Olway, Hendre Ifan Goch, Cefn Gwilgi a Bodwi. A byddwn ni hefyd yn ymweld â un o'n ffermydd Prosiect Porfa Cymru, Blaen Glywon Fawr. Ond yn gyntaf, ewn ni draw at Gwennan, sydd ar fferm laeth Graig Olway, sydd wedi buddsoddi tipyn mewn is-adeiledd i storio slyri ar ei fferm.
Hi, I'm Gwennan Evans, a Technical Officer for Farm and Connect, and welcome to Graig Olway. Today we're here and we've joined up with Russell Morgan and the family. We've got a few ongoing projects here, including the new lagoon. And today we have Owen Murphy from ADAS to discuss the slurry storage options for you.
Graig Olway is a family-run dairy farm. Been in the family for 3 generations, been milking about 180 cows, with a view for expansion and to comply with future regulations. We wanted to do something along the lines of a slurry lagoon. As I said, we've got 180 dairy cows, followers. We also finish all the beef cattle off the farm. We've got quite an area of arable land as well, and a few sheep. So we're truly a mixed farm, but dairy is our primary enterprise. The idea for this project came about probably similar to a lot of dairy farms. We've been struggling with capacity, having to spread slurry in the winter months, which is obviously going to be ruled out now in the next few years, in the coming years. And then during the summer months, we've been running out of slurry when we've been able to make most use of it for crop need. So it just made perfect sense to try and get a store in place to future-proof ourselves and comply with future regulations as well. It's going to enable us to manage our slurry or nutrient then usage across the farm. As I've said, we were pumping in the winter. Well, the nitrogen in the fertiliser value of the manure, we're losing a big chunk of it then. Whereas in the summer months, a day like today, we could be out slurry spreading and making full use of the nutrients in it, and not chasing around in the winter with the risk of runoff and everything else that you'd get with spreading in wetter months of the year.
My name's Owen Murphy. I'm an advisor with ADAS. I've come down today to Graig Olway as part of the dairy project with Farm and Connect. As part of the project, we were invited to come in and do the slurry storage calculations to work out what type of lagoon and what size lagoon Russell would need to comply with the pending environmental regulations in Wales. Russell's previous storage was a small lagoon located directly next to his existing cubicle sheds. Based on Russell's plans to expand the farm, the lagoon location was not suitable due to its proximity to surface water. So we did calculations to work out how big the lagoon needed to be. We looked at potential sites. Russell wanted to put the new lagoon. We came in and did site investigations, dug trial pits to see what type of soil types we had. Soil types were sent to the lab. That came back to determine that some of the sites were not suitable. It was also very useful because it determined that Russell's choice was a lined lagoon. An earthbank lagoon wouldn't be an option. We looked at costings for steel towers and for concrete stores. They were deemed to be too expensive, so this was the most suitable option. At the moment, what you see here today is a lined lagoon. It's not completely finished. There's still some work to be done in terms of fencing, take-off points to be put in. The current estimate on lagoon cost is going to be between £50,000 and £60,000 for the completed system. We'll have a more accurate figure once all the remaining infrastructure requirements have been completed. I can say as part of the regs, we've worked out the nitrate loadings as well for Russell's farm. So the lagoon is based on cattle numbers that will comply with the new nitrate loading requirements, and they'll meet the regulations that are coming in.
Fferm arall sydd wedi buddsoddi mewn storfa newydd yw Cefn Gwilgi, lle mae Lisa i roi ychydig mwy o hanes i ni.
Here at Cefn Gwilgi Fawr Demonstration Farm, Edward and Kate Jones and family have been working on various projects to develop their business performance and sustainability. So one of the projects they've been working on is looking at and monitoring calf health. They've been using sensors in the calves' ears to monitor the activity and temperature of those calves, and hopefully then they will send a trigger if there's anything out of line before any clinical signs appear, and therefore hopefully reducing the use of antibiotics on farm. Another project they've been looking at is improving forage quality, and that is by incorporating more clover into the lays. They've also taken the opportunity on the farm here to renew their muck store through the use of the Sustainable Production Grant. And here to explain a bit more about that is Ed from Cefn Gwilgi Farm. So Ed, can you give us a brief overview of Cefn Gwilgi Farm?
Cefn Gwilgi is situated in mid-Wales, 450-acre farm, ranging between 600 and 1,000 feet. We're mixed flock with 50 suckler cows, 900 ewes, and we breed 200 replacements ourselves. The cows are mainly Limousin cross and Belgian blue cross cows with a Limousin bull. All cattle are sold as stores at around 8 to 11 months, and we take them all to Bishop's Castle Market. We run a speckle-faced flock and Welsh, and we breed our replacements from them using Aberfield rams. So we've got an Aberfield cross ewe coming in, keep some Texel cross and buy some mules.
And you finished lambs then on grass only, or?
Yeah, we're part of the Waitrose group, but we're also in the Abervale system, so that means all our lambs are forage fed, so we don't use any concentrates. Well, if we do, they don't get marketed through the Abervale scheme later in the year. So 80% of the lambs would go as Abervales, and the other 20 would go into a normal Waitrose system, really.
So what housing system do you currently have for the cattle?
We're loose housing. We did think about going down the slurry route when we looked into the SPG, but I think we were put off it by the NVZ complications, really, and maybe for the size of suckler herd we're running, maybe the costs were too large to go that way. So we've stuck with a loose housing system and dry muck, really.
And they're all housed then in one shed, the cattle?
No, they're housed over. Most of the suckler cows are in one shed. We've got 2 loose sheds, really, that we run the flock in.
And you feed baled silage for them then indoors?
Yeah, we're all round bales, and the cows, all the cattle have silage ad lib.
So what was your previous system of muck storage?
Our previous system of muck storage was a very small mixen in front of our house, which worked with the old 200-year-old buildings, and it was convenient. But as we've expanded, we found that mixing is overflowing, difficult to drive around. So that the main reason for the muck store is really capacity, but there are also other reasons for doing the store, environmental reasons that we probably wouldn't be compliant to if we were to carry on as we are. With the grant available at this time, timing just seemed just right to have a go at really sorting the situation out. We've had a Sustainable Production Grant, so 40% funded, so it's a big help.
So what is the size of the new store you are going for through the Sustainable Production Grant?
Well, the muck store section will be 40 by 60 foot. When we did our calculations before, we currently produce about 470 cubic metres of muck a year, and the store will be capable of holding more like 660. So this should allow us, with bad weather, to carry through maybe from one year to the other, or if we decide to expand a bit with the cows as well. The muck store we're looking at a cost of about 58,000. Obviously the grant will come in to help and reduce that cost. As far as the cows alone, I suppose we're going to be quite some time seeing the payback on this, but we're looking at long term and hopefully future generations in the business. But obviously the muck plays a big part in the sheep side of the business, because growing quality grass for fattening lambs at the end of the day and saving on buying in nutrients.
There's not a heap to worry about for many of the beef and sheep guys. Here at Cefn Gwilgi, yes, storage has been an issue. What we're going to lose is the sort of dodgy field heaps and the dodgy yard heaps. So no longer will you be allowed to store muck in the corner of the yard with no collection of the effluent that's coming from it. Hence why Ed's putting up a new store. Field heaps will still be allowed to have a temporary field heap. But certainly we're going to be a lot more tighter about where they can go in terms of locating in the right place that are safe and are going to avoid any pollution issues.
Un o ffermydd Prosiect Porfa Cymru yw Blaen Glywon Fawr, lle ymunwn gyda'r ffermwr Bleddyn Davies i glywed mwy am ei buddsoddiad yno i helpu gyda'r system pori cylchdro.
Hi, I'm Bleddyn Davies. I farm here at Blaen Glywon Fawr, which is in Ceredigion, and we're about 5 miles inland from Newquay. We currently run about 380 acres, 750 ewes, and we've currently got 25 suckler cows, and we run 35 dairy beef crosses as well. Well, we've been easing our way into a rotational grazing system for about 3-4 years by now, and before that we would have been primarily set stocked, which, well, dramatically lowering our utilisation of grass here, which resulted in having to top stemmy grass that had gone to seed that hadn't been used by the sheep. And when we were set stocked, we had more weeds, docks and thistles and nettles in the pasture. But since moving on to a rotational grazing system, it's cleaned up the pasture, and we've seen a lot more productive grasses taking hold. Well, we're currently up the top. We're just short of 1,000 feet here, and they're about 8 and 10 hectare fields, so quite big fields. They'd be, well, set stocked on it until they were finished grazing it, and then they'd be moved on. You could call it a loose rotational grazing system in a way, but there was no system behind it. It was just whichever field looked ready next to be grazed. But grass utilisation was very poor when we were on that sort of system. Yeah, the move to rotational grazing was gradual. We started with just doing the fat lambs in the first year to see how it worked, and the amount of grass we grew led us to believe that we could utilise it on more of the land. So the year after we did it on the fat lambs again, but before that we had done it on one bunch of ewes lambs to see how it worked. It did work pretty well. Ewes lambs seemed to respond very well to it, and the grass we grew was more than we usually grew. And following on from that, we've gone on to basically on a rotational grazing system all year round now. For the last 2 winters we've been on a grass wintering rotation, which has meant that 110 acres has been used all winter to keep the sheep, with no need for big bales or carting feed up to them. Once the lambs are 4 weeks old, the ewes and lambs are on to rotation as well. Ewes and lambs, when we graze them together, they're on 2 hectare blocks, and then during the winter rotation then, the ewes will be on hectare blocks, moved every 2 to 3 days depending on grass growth, and then the fat lambs will be on hectare blocks as well. The fields up here are 10 and 8 hectare fields, so easy way to split them was into 2 hectares. It seemed to work, and each rotation carries 220 ewes, which is just about what we can manage through the handling systems up here. I was in discussions after the first grass wintering rotation we did. That was on 2 hectare blocks, moving every 5 to 6 days. Utilisation wasn't the best. We lost a lot of grass to being trampled in. So after speaking to Rhys from Precision Grazing, we've then cut it down to a hectare block and move every 2 to 3 days depending on the grass on the block. The water system here is the biggest challenge we've got at the moment. There's no fresh running water up here. We're up on 1,000 feet now. Well, currently we're using a water bowser system. During the warm days we'd need to refill it every day. During weather like this we can go 3-4 days before we need to refill it. Seeing as it's going to be a permanent feature on the farm now, we need to look into how to make getting water to the ewes less of an intensive job. Yeah, we're currently using a 3-strand electric fence. We moved from battery energizers then to solar powered energizers. So hopefully all the ewes will be respecting more of the electric fence in years to come. Investment has been gradual over the last couple of years. We started with the battery operated energizers to start off with. But when reflecting on the fact you've got to buy the energizer and 2 batteries to go with it, one for use, one for charging, they're not far off the same price as these. The solars come in at between 250 to 300 pounds depending on strength, and then a 3-reeled system would set you back around 150 to 180 pounds. But it's been a constant evolution in a way, so we've bought some every year. It's not been one big output, it's just been a gradual build on what we've already had to make the system a bit more user-friendly then. Yeah, investing in this infrastructure will pay back for itself. Due to controlling where the ewes are all the time, you have a better distribution of nutrients through the dung. We've seen fertiliser use plummet over the last couple of years due to better regrowth and better quality grass being grown here. When you look at it in that way, if you save 2 tons of fertiliser, you've basically paid for the infrastructure you put in place. There are a few negatives. The workload is more. You've got the winding and unwinding of the electric fence, moving them, whatever weather it is, you've got to go out to move them or they will soon move themselves. But apart from that, if you want the benefits that come with it, you've got to be prepared to put the work in to go along with it. And as a part of this, you've got to be measuring regularly or you don't really know what you're managing.
The main benefits of improving grazing infrastructure is allow you to better manage and control how the farm is grazed and help you budget the feed available on the farm. More infrastructure allows you to have a higher grazing density and reduces your grazing on time, which is the length of time the livestock are on a grazing area. Reducing grazing on time has multiple benefits. These include sort of less selective grazing, which helps improve sward composition and also grass quality. Also increases the rest period, which of course promotes higher growth rates. The most economical and flexible subdivision infrastructure is electric fencing. We can have semi-permanent fencing or temporary fencing. These can be powered by either mains or solar powered energizers. When designing a grazing system and deciding on infrastructure, there are some factors that you may need to consider. These include ensuring that paddocks are equally sized as practically possible, avoiding funnel or narrow strips of land where stock are likely to congregate or regularly walk, and this is to minimise poaching. Avoid paddocks being narrower than a 1:4 ratio. Try to ensure the livestock are moved forward to the next paddock and do not exit through newly grazed areas. Also try and ensure that paddocks are grazed in a rotation, i.e. the last paddock is next to the first paddock. You need to avoid the need to cross busy roads, and also having easy access to handling areas beneficial. Each subdivided area will need a water supply, and an above ground pipe and portable trough is an effective, economical and flexible option. With regards to return on investment, splitting a paddock in half or doubling the number of paddocks and providing water can provide 100% return on investment in year 1 with 1 strand of electric fencing for cattle and a 50% return with 3 strands for sheep, providing that the additional grass grown can be utilised.
Mae system trin gwartheg effeithiol yn gallu arbed 50% o amser ffermwyr. Ymunwn ni nawr gyda Non sydd ar fferm Bodwi i weld eu system nhw.
Helo, Non Williams dwi a dwi'n swyddog technegol cig coch cyswllt ffermio yng Ngogledd Cymru. Heddiw ma dwi ar fferm Bodwi ym Mhen Llŷn a heddiw byddwn ni'n trafod y prif nodweddion y system trin gwartheg. Ond cyn hynny, gai groesawu Elis Griffiths sydd yn ffermio yma ym Modwy i roi chydig o hanes y fferm i ni, plis, Elis.
Da ni ffermio tua 600 o ceri. Na rhyw 1150 o ddefaid Suffolk Cross Mules yma wyna mis Chwerfor a clirio rwy'n i gyd reit cynhandiad o medran i'r rha. Dyn ni am yna rhyw 140-150 o ddychwymagu stabilisers yma. A pesgu'r teirwn hynna a cadw heffrod fatha replacements a gwerthu rei fatha replacements a pesgu'r ei salau yn.
Felly, yn aml iawn, mae problemau wrth drin gwartheg yn gallu arwain at problemau i'r stoc ei hunan yn ogystal ac i'r ffermwyr. Felly mae ystradegau y Bwrdd Iechyd a Diogelwch, HSE, yn datgan fod tua 100 o ffermwyr wedi cael niwed iddyn nhw yn flynyddol yn y Deyrnas Unedig o ganlyniad i drin gwartheg. Felly mae symudiad graddol wedi bod tuag at gael ocha solid i system drin gwartheg, fel nad oes na lawer o distractions iddyn nhw naill ochr i'r system. Mae hyn yn golygu bod hi'n haws i trin nhw a'i bod nhw'n fwy llonydd o fewn y system. Yn ddelfrydol, ni fydda angen i'r ffermwyr fynd i fewn at y stoc i'w trin mwyn lleihau risg i'r ffermwr ei hun.
Yn 2017, ath y system am mewn. Nathon ni penderfyniad adag hynny godi y share slats yn fama i'r buchod. Wedyn, be oedd yma cynt oedd siedio cubicles lawr yn gwylodion y fanco a lle handlo yn gwylod. Ond oedd o'n le handlo bach o rhywun yn gorau setio fyny cyn i hiwsio i... Oedd y res ond yn dal 2 fuwch. Doi mor yn saffan a handiaf a dwrthyd yn... Pan nathon ni godi'r share slats yma, nathon ni benderfynu cael y lle handlo wrth ochr y lle. Mynd ar internet a sbio lot o lyniau. Fys i'n America efo'r gymdeithas stabilisers. Fyddwn ni ar lot o ffermydd y fanno, welys i lot o lyfydd handlo clyfar effernol yn fanno. Syniadau chdi bach o bob man, di gwir, 1 neu 2 o bob man o'n i'n mynd i... Ys yn diwedd o'n i'n dyfynu fo be o'n i isio yn fama. Yn gweithio dda yma hyd yma lle da.
Ia, gret. Wedyn, ia, chdi'n sôn am yna 2 berson sy'n gweithio fod y dad Edward yn aml ar y ffarma. Ond wyt ti'n teimlo o ran mynd yn ôl i'r gwartheg, o'ch chi di elwa ran unrhyw wahaniaeth o ran amser neu beth da chi di arbad o roed hon yn ei le i gymharu fo'r system gynt, lle?
Fatha, ydych chi 2 fuwch oedd yn mynd yn yr hen res wedyn oedd rhywun wrth ei hun, oedd o'n ôl gymlaen, o rhywun yn gorfod mynd dros Ben Giatia i nôl buchod o'r caich, o rhywun yn gorfod mynd i'r caich at y buchod. Wedyn, y fama, wel, dagor y giat, mae yna 10 fuwch, mae nhw'n dilyn i gilydd lawr y rest, mae rhywun yn cael y giat, gorlan gronna. Wedyn, gwneud, be bynnag mae rhywun yn gallu gwneud gwaith buchod mae ben ei hun fan, dos i'm eisiau help lle a di rhywun yn gorfod mynd mewn i'r caich at y gwartheg de. Gan saff lle...
Lle hyn di arbed lot o amser a lleihau risg i chi o weithio fo?
Yndi mae o, yndi. Wedyn, fyddwn ni... Ia, beth arall, fyddwn ni sbio mewn i'r... Pryd oedden ni sbio mewn i wneud y res wrth injectio, felly oedden ni licio bod yna ddarn hir o fanna lle dos am byd y stopio rhywun os ydy'r fuwch yn bagio, mae rhywun yn gallu bagio hefo i injectio i neu bynnag bod os baria fanna, bod nhw'n gorfod tynnu nôl, ail gychwyn, nôl ag ymlaen. Ia. Oedden ni eisiau fod mor saff a fydda rhywun fod wrthi bod rhywun haws o brifo ar y job yn ddi. Diwrnod testio TB mis Awst, fydda ni'n dod â criw o fuchod o lloiau mewn i'r iard yna. Da ni'n gallu neu'r iard yma, gollwng buchod i caich acw a lloiau drwad i caich yna, ugain o iardydd yma i allu sortio'n allan yn ddilol. Sgwisgaps yna oes. Handi effernol o gwartheg, di rhywun yn gorfod cleimio drosodd. Os di os yn dod yna sydyn, os di rhywun wedi gorfod mynd mewn i'r caich a bod yna beth reit bigog, mae'n rhaid yn dod yna reit andiddi. Criw o fuchod yn dod rownd, gadael 10 fynd, ydyn ni cael hon. Mae'n cael un tyn ôl o jyst iawn de. Yn cael ei gwasgu, ydyn maen nhw wedi mynd, ydyn agor ei nôl. A ydyn cael giat yn cefn y res yna. Wedyn ia, da ni'n iwsio dipyn ar rhain. fel mae bychod mewn yn y res, os oes a ddwy dair dy mynd yn ei blaen, a ni gau ham, lle bod nhw'n bagio yn ei hola holl ffordd nôl gwasgu hynny sy'n cefn, a ni trio gwasgu nhw'n yn y tri darn lle. Sy'n rhoi hwnna mewn, un person yn bwlws o 100 o uchod, ychydig bach dros awr mae'n gymryd, a neb di gwyllio na'n byd. I feddwl sydd oedden ni y flwyddyn gyntaf roedden ni'r boluses oedd yn iawn de, ond yr ail flwyddyn oedd y bychod yn gwybod a no way oedden nhw'n gymryd o'n ei cegad yn yr rhaid ni investio yn hwnna am y peth gorau just iawn sydd yn yr res iawn lle de.
Diolch am ddangos ni y system sgynnach chi'n ei lle a sut ydych chi'n gwneud defnydd ohoni o ddydd i ddydd a'r nodweddion penodol sydd ohoni. Diolch.
Croeso.
Croeso mawr iawn i chi. Welcome to Hendrei van Gogh farm near Bridgend, one of Farming Connect's red meat demonstration sites. And I'm here today with Rhys, one of the farmers at Hendrei van Gogh. So Rhys, if you could introduce us to the farm and tell us a bit more about the enterprises you've got here on the farm.
Yeah, Hendrei van Gogh is based in Bridgend, South Wales. We're sheep only and a livestock enterprise. We're running lambing 600 ewes plus 80 ewe lambs dry. Everything's housed in the winter. The farm ranges from 500 to 1300 feet above sea level. Annual rainfall is about 2.2 metres annually. So we have quite a bit. We're just over 200 acres, about 220 acres, and it's all owned at home on farm. We don't rent any ground out, hence why we put in a new shed this year. We've got a couple of projects on the go. We're looking into our carbon footprinting to see what we're doing already as a baseline for the farm. And we're looking into a lameness project with the sheep, which has sort of developed into a bedding project for the winter housing. We're also looking into the KPIs of the farm and see what we can improve on and see where we are to start with already.
Yeah, and I think that leads us on nicely to talk a bit more about what we're here today to discuss. So you decided to put slatted floor system into the existing sheep shed you've got. Why did you want to look into the slatted flooring system?
Yeah, well, it's been on the radar for a few years now. We've always had been fed up of sheep going lame in the winter due to build up of straw, etc. in the feet, and the slatted floor looked like a maintenance free sort of option, and so we took the plunge and done a slatted sheep shed used an old building that was there just to store machinery and hay and straw. So we've done that into a sheep shed now, which we house all the ewes in, and I say we don't use any straw anymore. And the sheep's feet are a lot healthier going out in the spring. As of this year, after we put the slatted floor in, we've saved £2,500 on just buying the straw initially that we didn't need to use this year. We'd done a bedding project with Farming Connect then, so we looked at various beddings, obviously the slatted floor, plastic slatted floor, barley straw, wheat straw, Enviro bedding product, which is like a recycled paper waste, and then we looked at recycled sawdust that we get from our local recycling yard. So yeah, it was a good project, I think.
So in terms of the results from that trial then, what did you find out?
We found a few interesting things out that obviously, as we sort of worked out before we'd done the slatted floor, there was no labour cost to putting bedding down, just obviously the installation first of all. The bedding of the straw soaked up a lot more water. It was anywhere between 11 pence per day per ewe to 30 pence was one of the worst. But we found the straws were as good as anything, but the sawdust was as cheap as anything, but it needed to be cleaned out after about 4 weeks of use. So yeah, it was a no-brainer from the slatted shed, as long as you can obviously do a lot of the work yourself and yeah, buy things right, I suppose. So the shed was there existing already, but we did refurbish it. The actual slats and the tanks and the concrete work was about £18,000, and then it cost £30,000 in total, but that was including extending the two sides out 8 foot just to do 2 extra feed passages, and including all the feed barriers and everything else. I say we've done all the labour ourselves, and we've got our own machines, so obviously that did help massively. Yeah, and we did work a lot of hours to complete the job, but it's worth it in the end, seeing the results.
So quite a significant cost up front to start with, but we've done the maths. Hopefully over the years you'll actually save money.
Yeah, definitely. I say we do spend £2,500 a year on straw for the winter, for the 100-day winter that we house for. I say we don't need to buy that now, maybe 20-30 bales just for lambing. So yeah, you only got to do the quick maths, and it won't take long to pay it back. That's without the hidden costs of like lameness that was being caused with the other bedding, which is there's no straw to build up in their feet with the slats, so they're not getting lame, and we've seen a massive reduction in our lameness this year. And I say this without the cost of alamicin and treatment and labour again. But yeah, we had as good a lambing and as healthy a lambing as we've ever had this year. Not putting it all down to the slats, but it helped this way. We've done it to house 540 ewes in the winter. Plus we might adapt it to do store lambs or to finish even our own lambs through the summer and this and that. But we had them stocked, it was about 90 to a pen, so a 30 by 22 foot pen. It was 90 ewes in a pen. Our ewes about 65 to 70 kilos. Yeah, so I think it worked out something about 7 square foot per ewe, which sounds tight, but we've compared to our straw, we've got 60 foot of feed space in every pen, both sides of the pen, so the feed space is plentiful, plus we feed a TMR ration, so the diet is there in front of them all day, so that any weaker ewes or shyer ewes won't go without their diet. Well, easily the saving off the cost of straw, that's £2,500 a year, and I can't see it going down very soon, the way nothing goes down once it goes up, does it? But say the labour saving from bedding the sheep, the fuel usage and the tractor usage by not having a straw chopper. We've got slurry in the tanks underneath the ewes, which can go out onto the fields, and you don't have to wait as long for it to break down in the fields, as it's mixed with a lot of water. Whereas previously you would have to pile it up into the corner of the yard and wait for it to break down before actually spreading it. Our carbon footprint, it's all going to help towards that by not having to travel to collect the straw.
So what would your advice be to any farmers thinking of investing in slatted flooring for their systems?
Do your homework before you buy the actual slats. There's different types and guarantees and everything else. Shop around. I think the prices have gone up since we've done what we have last year. Yeah, and just make sure the system works for yourself. I say there's lots of different types of systems you can do, but I say you've got to work in each individual system. I say there's no two farms the same, is there? So yeah, just speak to farmers that have been there, done it before. I know there's not many at the minute, but I'm sure we'll get more and more the way the straw prices are. But so yeah.
So thank you very much, Rhys, for allowing us to visit the farm today and having a look at the slatted flooring system.
No problem. Welcome anytime.
A dyna ni am y rhaglen hon. Os hoffech chi wybod mwy am unrhyw beth sydd wedi cael ei drafod yn y rhaglen yma, cofiwch gysylltu gyda'ch swyddog datblygu lleol, ewch i'r wefan neu cysylltwch gyda'r rhif canolog. Cadwch lygad allan am y bennod nesaf lle byddwn ni'n trafod arloesedd. Cofiwch wylio. Diolch.